And now we have an opportunity to field some questions from them. And as you think about and write some of the questions down, I had to chuckle a little bit, Jacque, at your comment about the Generation Z. They're willing to spend more money on food. It's their parents' money. I've got a couple of those in the house. Oh, yes, absolutely. They'll spend my money like crazy. Yes. And so, questions. Yes.
So, I have a question. Very interesting presentation. So, my question is, are the animal rights people doing a better job at communicating their messages because they're applying, the influence and emotions? And if you think so, should we try to learn from them rather than try to fight them off?
Make sure.
We'll take turns. How about that? I think they do a very good job mobilizing. So what we can learn from them is how to mobilize ourselves, how to create a willingness to activate. I think we have the ability to actually tell better stories. And when we put ourselves up against them, we're better, the community's better storytellers. And we know animals better because you all do this every day. So I think from a story perspective, we've got the edge. From an organization perspective, they have the advantage right now. So the better we can advocate and connect with our communities and start talking, I think, and learning from that model is I think, the opportunity.
Yeah, I think sometimes we misconstrue their lack of factual information, and we say, well, we can't pick up a page from the activist playbook because we're never going to be inaccurate. And in reality, nobody's asking you to be inaccurate, but you correctly hit on what actually makes them effective, and that is the emotion. Yeah, they're saying inaccurate things, but they're saying it from a place of passion and conviction. And we have that, we just don't usually show it. So just to add to what Kim said, yes, mobilize, take that page from their playbook, embody that passion and conviction.
Yeah, those animal rights folks, they're not constrained by the truth. So they have their playbook is a little bigger than ours in that regard. Other questions from the audience? Yes. Where are we at?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
So I'm Diane with Applegate, and just so if people don't know, Applegate was founded about 29 years ago, and we're the biggest provider of antibiotic-free and organic pork, poultry, beef, and turkey, chicken, pork, and beef. So I want to commend both you guys. I think you totally hit it on the head. Our consumers there's definitely a branch of our consumers who are very educated, and antibiotic-free was the only label claim we could use from a regulatory standpoint. You weren't allowed to say raised without antibiotics, 15, 20 years ago. It's a very good point. I think there is a group of consumers 20 years ago who they were not worried about antibiotics in their meat. They understood that concept. They truly believe that the overuse of subtherapeutic antibiotics in animal agriculture is what was contributing to resistance. 10 years ago, the founder, Stephen McDonald of Applegate, said, we are creating our competition. We are creating the industry that all of a sudden consumers are going to have choices everywhere. And I think that's happened. And I think it's so exciting that there has been a consumer segment that does think that the overuse in subtherapeutic was a problem, and the industry has stepped up, and it's amazing. And I'm just thrilled to see so many organizations in this come out that it seems like everybody is much more aligned that we need to do our part, and our part is to remove it for growth promotion. So,
excellent. You might speak to some of your work, Kim, with the Farmer and Rancher Alliance in dealing with some of these issues as it relates to the food service industry and the chefs. And I know that I sat on a panel in Beverly Hills and we talked about and had food dialogues. Share with us perhaps some of those experiences that you had there.
And Jacque knows this as well as I do, honestly. Jacque was on the communications committee for USFRA for years when she was at the Cattlemen. USFRA, the Farmers and Ranchers Alliance, kind of put its stake in the ground and said farmers aren't part of the conversation. We're going to put farmers into the conversation. And not just, in rooms with our own peoples, but really pushing it out there. So to Scott's point, Dr. Vernon's point, going to Hollywood, going to New York, sitting at that, Food for Tomorrow session that the New York Times has, really being present, being with the chefs, being with producers of the next TV show, making connections. And what we found is, and Dr. Vernon's a testament to this, when we make those connections in these meetings, they continue past the meetings. So the members who participate in the food dialogues, and it's really a panel discussion like we've been having here, but representative of a lot of different opinions about food, we've created connections, and all of a sudden people start talking to each other. So the influential chef or the influential TV producer will call who they meet on the panel and say, I want to learn one more thing from you. And that's really what USFRA has been doing. And they've been doing that for a better part of 6 years, I think. Food dialogues at the state level, at the national level, all around the country, looking to break new ground where we haven't been visible in the conversation that's already happened about food.
Yeah. And to that regard, when we were doing those food panels, I had an opportunity to meet an Emmy-winning director of food in the Food Network, and a chef and deals in that space all the time from New York City, and now lives in LA and Hollywood, and continues to produce food television. And because of that relationship, it's a person to person. We've maintained that, and we were in Hollywood, 2 years ago? Or 3? Whatever. And even as recently as Monday, we were having dialogues about food. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. When you break it all down, we're people. And if you can connect on that human level, she trusts me, and I trust her to be honest with each other, and so then we try to find out more. It doesn't mean that we're always going to agree on the outcomes, but at least we're willing to listen to those. And so that's the kind of conversation and storytelling that we need to have. We'll go back here to Weston.
So if you want to, get woke up, try to ask a question. My heart's like... No, so...
Yeah, that's good.
I'm a young rancher in the middle of Montana, and what I see is I come to something like this, I get all pumped up to go share a message or do something, and then I get back home and I get in the day-to-day, and I don't have to see anybody. So
there's nobody around.
And the other thing I feel, I'm connected in social media, but what I see is, and not to rub anybody the wrong way, but in my industry, everybody's old. I'm just not to rub anyone the wrong way, but like the average producer's like 60 or over, and it's easy, like for my, and in my experience,
it's perspective. Yes.
For my like my dad.
Yeah.
I mean he's
old.
He's not going to get on social media. He's not, but the problem the issue is here and now. So I go home, I talk to my stock growers, affiliates, and group, and the first thing I get is, okay, that's your problem. But, so what advice would you give to somebody like me? How can I go back to where I'm from and spread this? What advice would you give to someone like me? How can I get after that?
So a very fair challenge, but I will say, as much as we emphasize social media, it takes it all, and I know that's not particularly helpful, because what we want is the one most efficient, effective way to get to the most number of people most quickly, right? And but everybody communicates in different ways. There are a variety of generations using a variety of different communications. So I would say don't be discouraged by that, because if going to the meat case, like we heard on our panel earlier, is your thing, that's great. That's a great way. If you're already shopping even and you stop and answer some questions, check. You've done your part for the day. So don't feel like it has to be in a medium you're not comfortable with, because we need it all. The other thing I would say is that I feel like the most powerful motivator is seeing the results and seeing the aha moment. And so I think it was Dr. French earlier who talked about how surprised and excited he was to see that when the bloggers came to their operation, that they actually came away with a positive attitude instead of concern. And that probably did more, now I'm putting words in his mouth, but that probably did more to convince him that he needs to do more things like that than anything else. So you have to, your other fellow farmers and ranchers have to see that successful moment. They have to find an opportunity to engage, bring consumers to Montana, or you guys get online or get to a city center and see the difference you can make by connecting. And then it'll go from there, I think.
And then I totally agree, and I'd add a few specific things, seeing Josh in the crowds. Josh, call out for the Masters of Beef Advocacy program, a beef checkoff funded program. Sign up for that. It's an awesome online, do we have any MBAs in the room? Yay, so good, a few, see? Online, some course, and then there's a community created where you get resources and tools, and there's campaigns you can participate in. So there's a really cool thing there. I know the pork guys have Real Pig Farming. I'm sure the chicken guys have something, and I don't know what it is. I know the Farm Bureau has young farmers groups. I will tell you, USFRA is focused on young farmers and bringing that story to life, because honestly, we do want to see people growing food who look a little bit like, and I would say us, but I'm not young anymore either, but, look like us. So there's a lot of organizations that can support your interest, and they want volunteers badly to engage, and they'll support you and figure out how to get you involved.
And part of that challenge too, Wesley, is as you look around at commodity boards, Farm Bureau boards, cattlemen's boards, all that type of thing, it's also represented in most part by old white men. And so how do we get younger people onto those boards? And that's where the boards in the commodity groups and trade organizations also have to be willing to accept an opinion other than what they've held for a long time. The young people are going to bring different opinions, different methods, different solutions, and sometimes you're going to have to be really courageous to stand in that room. But it's one of those kind of things, you can't do everything, Wesley, but you can do something. And if more of your generation will do that, then progress will be made. Other questions right there in the back?
Thank you. So when I go to the doctor's office, I have the opportunity to sit in the waiting room and watch what I call doctor's office television. And sometimes get rather concerned and frustrated by the messages that are shared on there about our modern day food supply. How do we work with the medical community to change that message so that it's more of an honest and realistic representation of what today's agricultural community looks like? And then along with that, I have some very big concerns, or real concerns about the university food systems around this country and the messages that they portray to the students at the university, and then how those folks are going out and becoming consumers, and the messages that then get replicated to their families and communities.
Oof.
Big question.
There's a lot of stuff there, so I'll just start. Okay. There's a good deal of learning and interaction. Breaking through to the medical profession, this room knows, is really difficult. It's done one person at a time. It's done in conversation. I know the checkoffs are investing in continuing medical education and in tools that would air in offices, kind of adopting, frankly, a pharmaceutical model of sales. Of going into doctors' offices and talking a little bit about diet and food, and also how we use antibiotics. So I think there are plenty of learnings here. One of them is simply that our medical counterparts, human health counterparts, are surprised to learn what we're doing. They don't know about VFD. They don't know a lot of what you're doing out there. And Ron can talk to you a lot about the work that the Animal Health Institute's doing with public health officials to bridge that gap. So it takes a lot of individual activities. The second question, I can't remember.
University. All right, will do. Well, just to build on that, the one thing I would say too is, because we've all been there where we've seen that really frustrating information and it's hard to know where to start, you instinctively know that you can't start with, that propaganda that's inaccurate out in your lobby. I'd like to talk to you about that. You shouldn't start that way. But it's hard to know where to start. And I think, again, to Kim's point, you have to find the common ground. I noticed that you're interested in how farm animals are produced. Did you know that I actually am a farmer? I would love to be able to talk to you more about that sometime. Let me know if you're interested. So finding that common ground, being a little less confrontational. From a university standpoint, we do need to get into the universities more often. Fleischman does a program with the Midwest Dairy Association where we go in and actually take students from food science and registered dietitian programs in the university to the university farm. Because you take a university like Iowa State, where you would expect people to understand and appreciate agriculture. It's the largest RD program in the country, and yet they turn out RDs who have never been on farms and don't know how food is produced, but will get questions from their patients about those very topics. And so you can go in and do a program where you just take them a couple miles south to the university farm, or better yet, to one of your farms, and show them what it's all about and engage, because that is that Gen Z. Those are the people who are doing research and want to know.
And that university question is really a large one. At Cal Poly, by California standards, we're a fairly conservative campus. By national standards, we'd probably be, way out there on the left. And I hear it every day in our hallways by agriculture faculty and the twist that they put on some of the conversations and the lectures in the classroom as it revolves around sustainable agriculture, as it revolves around organic agriculture, and all of those types of methods. And what I'm finding is the pressure at the university level is increasing in terms of the teacher-scholar model and the time spent, simply in research. And, oftentimes those folks are coming from non-agriculture backgrounds into the academic environment, and they're bringing an agenda with them. It's going to be an ongoing problem. I don't know if there's a quick solution to any of that, but I'm troubled by it. And on my campus, I would be considered a real dinosaur in some of the dialogue that we're having today about these kinds of issues, because I see it as boots on the ground, working with producers and things on a daily basis. And more of our folks sometimes are spending time at the lab, and not in the fields. And so I understand and appreciate your current concern. We'll go to Leonard.
Thank you. Is it working?
Yeah, just one.
First of all, as I said before, I want to thank both of you for being here. As one of those folks that have been involved with this particular aspect of this organization from the beginning of this program, we should have brought you here to the first one. And secondly, Katie should have had both of you or your companies become members, so then we could expect you to be here any time afterwards. But a couple of points. One of you made the comment about the fact that, and I don't want to criticize Christine's little video, but probably it was too long for most people to stick with. And that's not a criticism of that, but we all know how the bobbing heads on the media news do things in sound bites. Because when we put this program together, one of the driving factors was, and it's a common, in my experience, it's a common problem with agriculture in general. We rarely play offense, but we poorly play defense. And we usually don't get into these things until we're playing defense. And one of the things, going back to the beginning of this discussion, was the little corner. I remember seeing it one day in the corner of USA Today on the bottom left-hand side of the front page. There's always a little graph with something on it. And it was the 80% of the antibiotics used in this world are consumed in agriculture. That's a soundbite that once that is done, you're playing defense. It's just like watching the dairy cow being dragged through the lot at the slaughterhouse and then saying, well, we don't always do it this way. Well, forget it anyway. The other thing I would comment on, and you made the comment, and I see that Jay came back in. He was one of those folks this morning who told a little story about his own operation, and he hit the nail right on the head, and I think everybody commented. So you've identified the process that we need to be doing in every step of the way through this program, and I want to thank you for doing that.
Okay, thanks, Leonard. We have a question over in the back there. And while you get to that question, we do want to thank the young producers who are here as well, because not all of their stories are the same either. They come to production from different directions, and as they share those stories, it can have an impact. Okay? Question over here in the back.
Do you know, mine's not really a question. It was more of a comment to the question before.
Okay.
I'm not a veterinarian. I am the state epidemiologist in North Dakota. And I think one of the things that I've noticed is the lack of public health people who are here. I mean, Michael's here and I see Chris is here. And there's just not as many public health people that I know in North Dakota. We work with our ag department and we work with our state vets quite often. And I think one of the questions is, how do you reach that medical community, is to maybe go back and talk to your people in public health, at your state health department or your local health department, because those are the people we primarily work with. And CDC has a lot of programs that are already out there working on healthcare acquired infections. Many of them revolve around antibiotic resistance. And so there's already programs in place for public health to be working with the medical community about judicious use of antibiotics. And so since we started working on that, we started working with our state vet's office and our ag department to make it kind of an all-consuming program versus having the human health people doing this and not talking to the animal health people, and the animal health people doing something else, and then our messages would be mixed. And so I'm just saying that an opportunity for you to meet up with your medical counterparts for human health would be to work with your state and local health departments.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And that kind of gets to that next step. What's the next step? Where do we take this from here? And that's a good suggestion. We'll go over here.
I want to follow up. My name's Dick Raymond. I am an MD. I used to be Nebraska's chief medical officer and a very good friend of your former boss, Dr. Dwelle, who I got him involved in these meetings to try to get more public health folks here. And I want to go back to the statement back here, too. Those doctors' TV shows, you know, they're provided for free by the drug companies or by other people. If the beef guys would provide a video, or Tyson would provide the chicken video, they'll plug them in there. They'll play that stuff. They just aren't going to pay for it. And then as far as the conversation about involving MDs and getting the message to MDs, it can be done. The Oklahoma Beef Council has paid for me to go twice to Oklahoma to speak to 2 different physician groups. I've been to the Nebraska Medical Association. I've also spoken to the Nebraska Public Health Association. There are those of us who will take the antibiotic message. And if the state beef councils or pork councils have also paid me to go to a lot of different places to speak, the physicians want to hear this stuff. And in the small towns in rural America, when the mother is worried about the use of antibiotics because she saw that 80% thing in the USA Today, who does she ask? She goes to the family physician, the pediatrician, and says, what do you think? Because that's one of the most educated people in that small community, and they don't know. So I agree with what's been said. Get the message to the physicians and get them on your side. It can be done.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Yeah.
We have one over here. Do we? Right here. Dave?
I hope I can give you a picture of how much fun I'm thinking this could be. When Wes was asking his question about what can he do as a lone rancher, I kind of whispered across Al, go home and talk to your cows. Guys, somehow this picture is coming into focus in my mind that we're not letting the animals tell the story for us. And I really appreciate what these ladies have given to us, because what does Purina do with their puppy chow? They show this puppy charging in, pushing the bowl at least 6 inches before they dive their nose into it. Is that the sort of enthusiasm that we can put out with the egg? All right. Now, it doesn't mean the cows have to be talking, but you know, this Generation Z is very much into cartoons and all kinds of things. So maybe the cows can talk a little bit. But maybe Wes can do the talking for him. He says, now look, I just talked to cow number 1400 over here. And this is what I'm hearing.
The story of cow number 14.
Cow number 4. And look, we don't have to stop with the cows. We can even take it out to the horse that's using, I mean, what's the horse seeing?
Budweiser.
Well, okay. But what I'm talking about here is building the whole story of this ranch. What's the windmill saying? Okay, so I'll let somebody else.
I love that. And
Thank you, Dave.
Katie, I think you need to have round tables, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ideas in this room. I love it.
Kidding.
Other questions? Yes, over here with Jay. And he is one of the faces of American agriculture for U.S. farmers and ranchers.
And that's a big thank you to Ketchum. They've done a good job as far as promoting the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance, and it's given me the ability to sit in rooms like this and share my story a little bit. My question is, there's so many industry groups, and we all have the same message to share, but at the same time, it seems like we're fighting for that airspace. How do we unify pork, beef, poultry, VeggieTales, whatever you want to get into? How do we unify our front so that we can stand in front of? I mean, there's probably 40 or 50 different, affiliates that are here that probably need to hear one of these producers or myself's story. But how do they find us? I mean, and I'll give the shameless plug to U.S. Farmers and Ranchers. They do a great job of that. But at the same time, we need to figure out how, when someone's walking into Sam's and they have a question, what face can they put with it?
A really great, challenging question. I think that part of the problem is in agriculture, we spend a lot of time trying to get it right, and we get convinced that there's one right way, and then we have to work to make sure that we're all doing things that one right way. And, coming back full circle to our very first question about the activist groups, if you think about all the animal rights activist groups, they're all sort of saying the same thing, but in a different way. They don't stop to fight with each other that so-and-so was on People magazine saying X, and that so-and-so was... you've heard Ingrid Newkirk, all news is good news, right? And we don't want to go that far, but we need to get over ourselves and get out of the room where we're trying to decide what the absolute right thing to say and who the right person is to say it, and just do it. And be okay that lots of different people are doing it in lots of different ways, because it's a big challenge. We need lots of people doing it in different ways. And I don't know if that's a great answer, because I think we all instinctually know that, but we get caught up in the bureaucracy of our organizations and we have trouble breaking through. But I think that's it.
Wes Ismail and I were having this conversation earlier. The animal rights group have one goal in mind, is to eliminate meat from your diet. And they'll spend $1 billion to do that. We have 1 billion issues, and we'll try to spend $1 to change your mind in agriculture oftentimes. And they're competing, sometimes it's competing forces across platforms. And so that is part of the challenge, and getting people to agree to that. And some of the efforts and initiatives that have gone on in agricultural organizations have gotten somewhere to that point, but it is expensive. Let's not kid ourselves. It is expensive to get penetration into consumers' minds and into the public's minds. It takes a tremendous amount of money, energy, resources, and talent to be able to do that. And if we understand that, we can lobby for and encourage organizations to invest in that type of market penetration with messaging, even though in the storytelling mode, we have to be consistent, we have to be constant with that. And while you may, as producers out there, no one can ever discredit your experience. Your experience is your experience. And so if you tell your story, it's the truth. It is your truth. And if you continue to do that, they cannot take that away from you.